Ms. Shweta Bharti and Ms. Neena Gupta to jointly welcome Sir Honorable Mr. Tushar Mehta, the Solicitor General of India, with a token of thanks in a form of bouquet and hampers. Let's have a huge round of applause everyone for Mr. Tushar Mehta.
Good morning, Honorable Mr. Tushar Mehta, the Solicitor General of India, Honorable Dr. Lalit Haseem, Honorable Ma'am Neena Haseem, and my dear friends. Thank you for coming in this early morning for a very important topic that we are going to talk about, and that is women in law. I think the history we have been speaking about for a very long period of time. I think the history of women in law has started much before, since 1916. I think when we had the inaugural session, we did talk about how the journey has been for women, right from Ms. Regina Guha having her fight, Ms. Sudhanshu Bala Hajra having her fight, Cornelia Surabji having her fight. And it was one man who actually made it possible for women to get enrolled in the bar, and that was Hari Singh Gaurji. So I think this ladies group that has been formed is the brainchild of Dr. Lalit Haseem. The whole idea is to bring all the women together and talk about issues which actually concern us, so that we are able to then together look forward to certain solutions around it. So from 1923, when we got ourselves enrolled in the bar, till date, the Indian industry has witnessed an unprecedented growth. And especially in the law firms, where post-liberalization, we have seen a surge of women coming into the profession. In the last decade or so, the legal sector claims to have transformed from a kinship-based model, that was a partnership model, to an industry that is more based on merit. The adoption of a professional hierarchy structure that exists in law firms today has come up working with international clients, and there is a lot of emphasis which now is given to the rankings and branding, which has reinforced this entire assertion. There is no dearth of talented women. In another organization, we see there to be almost more than rather 50% women. And therefore, I do realize that there is no dearth of talented women who have the ability to reach the top. But there are challenges which do exist. I think we have been talking about those challenges since the last many years. And those challenges are the biases at work, the work-life balance that still needs to be created. There are structural inflexibilities that we need to work around. So there are 3 sessions that have been planned out today, and we will be talking about how to break these stereotypes, how we are able to at least come forward in terms of women who are in litigation. We have such examples here with Sorukma, Neena ma'am, and there's so many other women who are around we actually can draw inspiration from. We also need to understand the role of women so far as law firms are concerned. The role of women so far as arbitration is concerned. I think there is a lot which is required to be done, and for that the discussions are important. Only when we discuss in forums like this is there a possibility that we are able to achieve what we desire. Now, gender inclusivity and diversity is something that we have, it is not a new term, but it is a concept that transcends mere equality. It's the notion that all services, opportunities and establishments are open to all people, that are male or female stereotypes, and that do not define societal roles and expectations. Gender inclusivity in the Indian law has been enshrined in our constitution, the very document that provides that basis and guidance for governance in a democracy. The concept of gender inclusivity in India is inextricable from the workings of the democratic principles we have adopted. While we are still a long way from achieving what we can to term as equality in the sphere of gender, the fact that the Constitution provided a foundational basis to the gender inclusivity in the Indian laws has helped us sustain a struggle for leveling the field en masse and has paved the way for enactment of legislation that have been passed over the years since 1950. Many steps have been taken at the legislative level in order to ensure parity in the gender in terms of opportunity, meeting the gender pay gap, and ensuring the role of women in leadership roles. Now look at the scenario so far as women in the boardrooms are concerned. While hiring women on boards because of a mandatory guideline which has been issued by the government under the Companies Act, it started off as a tick box. And that exercise was, the whole effort was to bring diversity into the table in the board. In fact, my session actually is going to talk about the role of women in boardrooms. So we will discuss a little bit more about it. But then the need that was felt was because there was a need for diversity at the boardroom. And this is because many of the women who were hired were not from the traditional old boys network. Being hired from outside that pool of talent, it needed much needed diversity of thought. The clear lesson that was learned was that talent can be found in individuals from all kinds of diverse backgrounds. They aren't all in one place and can sometimes emerge from the most seemingly unexpected sources. Now, driving diversity clearly goes beyond hiring policies of the organizations and processes, although these are key and part of the initial building blocks for driving diversity into the culture of the organization. However, if you look at the diversity and inclusion in today's time, there still are issues of gender pay gap. If you look at different sectors, like legal sector, the gender pay gap still is about 25%. The IT and ITA services is still about 24%. Healthcare and social work is still about 21%. Manufacturing is still about 24%. So I think there is a lot which is required to be done. So there are relevant questions to be asked on whether the women are choosing the roles that are paid sufficiently or not. Is it important that they understand this aspect and choose roles that are more lucrative, pay scale wise as well? There is a need for mindset change in the management that is the key. So, women's representation and gender pay gap are issues that must be a part of the board agenda as well. And it is a part of a proper talent and remuneration plan as well. It is well accepted that leaders who are hiring those people are also like them. So that is also important that women reach on top. Because once women reaching on top will be able to hire similar women also to take them to top. So there has to be a process for mentorship as well. And gender inclusion and diversity also brings about an economic and business case. In fact, there were some data and statistics that I was able to find out that diverse teams are considered to be better decision makers. In one of the studies, it was found that the diverse teams have a 60% improvement in decision making. Now that's a substantial number that we are talking about. Gender diverse teams outperform individual decision makers 73% of the time. And teams diverse in geography, gender, and age make better business decisions. Diversity also improves performance of individuals, and in one of the McKinsey studies, in fact, it was found that for every 10% increase in gender diversity, the EBITDA rose by 3.5%, and there was improved financial and market performance, which has been witnessed from women in leadership companies, with more women in executive management having shown to financially outperform companies where there are no women in senior roles. Companies with female CEOs have strong financial performance, and women definitely bring leadership skills and behaviors to the table. So I think there definitely is a case in point which is made out so far as women's role is concerned in the boardroom. Now look at women in litigation. There are multiple types of challenges. If I start to talk about it from the challenges that we have faced from the beginning, there is a lot which is required to be done, but I think I'll just touch upon a very brief issue on that, and that is something that Justice Leela Seth has made. In fact, stated in her book on balance. It says, in a musty storeroom was passed off as the women's washroom. More than 5 decades later, even now in many high courts and lower courts, there is an abysmal working condition for women. There are basic sanitation facilities which are not available, basic toilets which are also not available. And therefore, I think the basic necessary facilities that are required to be provided for a baby changing room or a room where women could breastfeed their children, or the basic creche facilities. I think Delhi High Court and Supreme Court is a good example, but there are a lot of high courts and lower courts which still require to have these facilities available. If we look at women in arbitration, that's another scenario, where in fact the statistics on arbitral appointments seem to bear out on a general sentiment that this community, that there is no diversity across the panel of arbitrators, and the quality of decision making also suffers because of this reason. So there is an urgent need for diversity here, and especially in relation to the appointment of arbitrators, where there are, in fact, in the entire international arbitration space, there are very few women who are actually available in the data pool. So there is a notion of unconscious bias which needs to be discussed, which needs to be accepted and addressed in conferences like these. Change will come down to an individual taking personal responsibility for giving due consideration to a diverse slate of candidates on every occasion that an arbitrator is appointed. So arbitration organizations, institutions and law firms should encourage strong diversity initiatives within their organizations as well. Now coming to the scenario that this is actually propagating, and that is women in law firms. If we look at the law firm situation, we see almost an equal amount of entry. And at the internship level, at the entry level, we see there to be equal amount of women who are coming into the profession. But over a period of time, as we grow up the ladder, that is where we see the leaky pipeline. There are very few women who are able to make it to the leadership roles. Now in India, there are very few women managing partners and senior partners in law firms, and it is not just about India. I think globally it is the same phenomenon. In fact, the acceptance of women so far as the law firms is concerned also is a little abysmal in that sense. We need a real effort being taken both at the organizational level as well as the entire overall environment of the law firms, so that we are able to sustain women in the organizational team. Over the years, India has definitely adopted progressive practices in bridging the gender pay gap, equity and inclusion gap. But law firms, in fact, there are still a lot of biases which are existing, and therefore there is a need to eliminate sex discrimination, which requires adoption of policies that enables the lawyers of both the sexes to work together in their personal and professional life. And such policies should include paternal leave, flexible working hours, and work schedules for childcare, which are available for women lawyers who otherwise would have sacrificed their professional life for their personal life in order to ensure that there is a balance created. Legal firms which are active in far-reaching life decisions for people should begin by providing infrastructural support for women and much in advance so that they are able to have a work-life balance, as we say. Law firms need to provide flexible work schedules, corrections, eliminate pay gaps on the basis of gender, and eliminate the biases within the firms, which can be a top-down approach. Most people present here are from the leadership positions, and therefore we need to take a vow and stand by the gender inclusion. That is the essence which will percolate down to the junior levels as well. We partners as a law firm should do our homework to find solutions that stick, and that is a huge responsibility that is bestowed upon us. That means tapping women in the organization itself to determine what benefits that would find most valuable, as well as keeping up to date on research to learn about innovative practices in the other law firms as well, which is able to retain women and also ensure that they are able to go up the ladder. Some law firms worldwide have come up with the idea of organizing and sponsoring diversity training programs which are designed to teach employees to understand the value and difference between men and women. So associations like Digital Ladies Group can be the front runners to look into the issues of gender disparity at workplace with focus on law firms and lawyers, and we must applaud Dr. Lalit Khatri for having conceptualized the thought behind this association to propagate the interest of women in the legal fraternity. Thank you so much.